Hello, you are welcome to today's review. I'm your host for today, Stacey Bellama, and there is a lot in store for you today. So this is our news and current affairs show where we're going to be discussing the news and current affairs that are trending all around the world. And I have some wonderful people on set with me today that are going to be helping me dig into these topics. And now first up, we're going to be saying hi to Ray.
Hi.
Hi Ray, how are you?
I'm all right.
It's good to have you on the show. And then we also have Esther today.
Hello everyone.
And Vladit.
Thanks for having me again.
Nice to
Good afternoon.
be here. Okay, so like I said, there's going to be a few topics that we're actually going to be discussing today. Now, the first topic that we're going to be taking a look at is Britain cracks down on illegal nail salon workers in fight against modern slavery. Now, modern slavery, what is that all about?
Well, I think when they say modern slavery is kind of abusing their own people, trying to get their own people to work for less money, and that's become a bit modern for them. It's like probably getting your relative to do something and paying a penny, and that's become a bit modern and normal for people to do that.
Yes, a report here says that British immigration officers have raided nearly 300 nail salons and arrested 97 people, mostly from Vietnam, for suspected immigration offences as part of a drive to tackle modern slavery. So 300 nail salons and 97 people have been arrested, you know, in light of this. So it's like, you know, a lot of Vietnam people are being exploited.
Not just Vietnamese people.
I was going to say not just
Exactly, but in this particular report is making reference to people working within the nail shops.
First of all, thumbs up to our immigration officers who really done their job really good this time. Modern slavery, I suppose, is a big problem in our society nowadays. I was reading some statistics. There are 46 million people who are engaged in this modern slavery. And what's the worst part of it is that about half of it, the children. So children labor is very common in our society nowadays, which is very, very dreadful. I would say it's a massive problem. We shouldn't engage children in slavery.
Yeah, actually, the report we are talking about, it has to do with an operation that Home Office embarked on sometime in December. I think it's Operation Magnify. And it's just amazing to see the much that they've been able to do. But this is just a tip of the iceberg. You know, when you talk about, we're talking modern slavery here. He just talked about, you know, child slavery. You know, slavery in itself is a big problem. You know, and many times I really don't know how the kind of support that you know, potential victims get. Is there any kind of support out there for someone who is a potential victim? Because I have seen cases where young people were brought into this country, or any other country in Europe for that matter, on these guys that they were coming to either learn or do something meaningful with their lives. And they come here, they have no passports, they have nothing, and they are enslaved. And then sometimes they're not even looked upon like victims themselves. You know, so for someone who is a potential victim, I don't know, is there any kind of support in place to help them?
I think there might be a support, like a call line, or, you know, there's a call centre line where you can call talking about abuse, and there are some help out there just actually getting into it and making that effort to call and ask someone to help you.
Well, just to add to that, Kevin Highland, he was given the role of the Independent Anti-Slavery Commissioner. Now, Part 4 of the Modern Slavery Act 2015 established the role of the Independent Anti-Slavery Commissioner. Now, the Commissioner has a UK-wide remit to encourage good practice in the prevention, detection, investigation and prosecution of modern slavery offences and the indication of the identification of victims. Now, you know, a lot of the times you can see that they may be detected, but is anything being done to prosecute these people that are actually committing these offences. Now, what the role of the Independent Anti-Slavery Commissioner is doing is ensuring that, you know, these people are being brought to justice for the, you know, the acts that they are committing. Now, Theresa May did actually say that this is the greatest human rights issue of our time, modern day slavery.
Very well said, yeah.
Because it's something that is happening right under our noses. A lot of people are being exploited, and they're being exploited in their millions. 46 million people, you know, are falling victim to modern day slavery. And how many of these people are actually detected? And when they are, what support is being put out there for them? And those people that are exploiting them, what is being done to ensure that they don't do it again?
We actually have a clip
yes.
to show you. We'll come back after watching the clip and we'll, you know, have to say a final word on modern slavery.
We conducted over 280 visits. We found 14 victims of modern slavery. Those 14 would probably never have been discovered if we hadn't taken this proactive work. So alongside that, we also identified, arrested 96 other people who were working illegally, and over 60 of those employers have been served with notices that they're potentially going to get a fine for employing illegal workers. Any sector of employment where it's cash rich, where it's unskilled or low skilled work, will attract people who may be in the UK illegally, may have been brought to the UK for that specific purpose, or they may fall into that once they're here. So that's why we use an intelligence-led approach to target those sectors of the economy where the incidences of illegal working and potential labour exploitation are rife. Some of them may be being paid below the minimum wage. Quite often we see additional factors, which could be that somebody is not in control of their passport or travel documents. They may have a bank account open that they know nothing about, they have no control over that. They may be restricted as to where they can live. Rarely, thankfully, do we see people held in a dungeon and abused on a regular basis, but it can happen. The majority of cases that we've seen through Operation Magnify have been those cases, as I've just described, where somebody's in circumstances where they've got no control as to what they can do. Yeah,
I was just wondering, I know that this is a project by the Home Office, Operation Magnify, to send a message, you know, to not just employers, but because with this sort of thing, it's like a cartel, it's a ring. You know, you've got strong people in our community behind, you know, this crime, because without people, because you need a lot of money, they pump a lot of money, you know, planning into ensuring that things like this work. So the message that the Home Office is actually trying to send, do you feel that it's strong enough? The report did say that this was specifically, you know, targeted at nail salon workers. We talked about child slavery. There's so much more that I think can be done. Is the Home Office doing enough? We applaud them for the much that they're doing, but is this enough?
Well, I don't think it's enough. I think they should do a bit more. We see now there's a lot open borders and everyone's coming in. And we have seen that there's a lot of no-shop now opening every day. There's lots of no-shop. Even in London, we got like 2,000 no-shop. And if you see on that, there's a lot of Vietnam, Chinese people working in it. And they got their family working in it, they got their friends working in it, but you don't know if those are immigrants or those are just coming in to work. So it actually works inside culture, inside, it's more like an inside job if you look at it properly. So I don't think the Home Office is doing enough, and there should be enough communication, enough work to be done with the Home Office.
Certainly, I think a lot of people that sort of fall victim to slavery, it's usually their own people that are exploiting them.
Yeah, because your relative brings you from your home country.
Yeah.
You trust them enough. That's why you came in the first place. But you come here and it's a different ball game, you know, entirely.
Certainly, I feel like more sectors need to get involved, like the health sector would certainly need to get involved. You know, they should be trained on how to identify, or, you know, if there's at all any form of concern that actually this person, something's not right here, or maybe even schools or whatever it is, they need to be more aware that, okay, modern slavery is something that is happening like right under our noses, and these people can be coming through, you know, whether it's your workplaces, wherever it is you're working, they could be coming through there. But are they able to know that actually there's something wrong here? You know, this needs to be flagged. So different sectors need to be educated on this, and they can get involved. It's not just a job, I would say, for the Home Office. There's so much more that people can do to get involved and help crack down on this.
I strongly believe that the government should emphasize more on the slavery, and investigate a bit more the actual companies that the massive corporations that they actually they are involved heavily in slavery. I was reading the other day the cacao beans products. Most of it they've been picked up in Africa, and they're obviously being picked up by children. So it's a very odd thing that enjoying your chocolate every day and knowing that that chocolate has been made with the child labor. So it's quite odd. I think the government and the police should emphasize more on these massive corporations.
In the first place, which will probably lead to something we're going to talk about later, we're talking about the Home Affairs. This also involves immigration, because how do these people come into the country? You know, you came through a border.
Certainly.
Yeah, as I said, there's all this open border now, and everyone's coming in. You need to identify the people coming in. You need to identify how long they're staying in the country. Identify what they're coming for in the country. Identify, are they going to school? Are they kids? Are they parents here? You know, there's a lot of things going on in Home Office and
That's
government.
true, because if
you can't just let people coming in and then, okay, they're working, they're going to school. Are they actually going to school? You need to look into that. Are they got a doctor, a surgery? You need to look into that. You can't let everyone coming in and then, okay, this is slavery.
There's no record.
There's no record on that.
Yeah, because someone comes in with maybe a 6 months visa. You know, you have that in the system that this person is coming. It should reflect whether or not the person left after 6 months. And if the person didn't leave, that's where the crackdown is supposed to start from. Because the people that have been here for 5 years, detected. So they came and never left. And nobody paid attention to that. So those are little ways you can eradicate, such things. Somebody could have, suffered only for 6 months if that was followed up. But the person suffers for 5 years, 10 years, because nobody cared. The system didn't, notice that a visitor came in that didn't leave.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess we can move on to something else. We're taking this next story, which says ISIS leader, 400 militants enter Europe disguised as refugees. This topic is really key. Report says that an Islamic State general who has been designated by the United States as a global terrorist is reportedly back in Europe from Syria, along with about 400 of his soldiers, many of whom crossed borders disguised as refugees, which is what we're just talking about right now. Mode of entrance is very key,
I think sort of, being able to get 400 of them into Europe, you can see that these people, they're trying to work smart. It's not a small, they themselves have an operation.
It's a massive operation.
Exactly. They have an operation that they themselves have planned, and it's not something that you would plan just over a small amount of time. So you can see that they're really taking time to see, okay, how are we going to get into this place and conquer them, or do whatever it is that we need to do. So the government, they definitely need to do more. Immigration definitely needs to do more. 400 people is a big number.
There's been times, last year, I went to Europe twice. And on both occasions, I just walked through the border. I walked through immigration. Nobody checked. Actually, one of the times there was even no official. Traveling from one country to another, nobody checked my passport. Nobody could be bothered. And obviously, I mean, I was going for good business, but I was wondering, just the same way I've walked past, anybody can, you know,
Can do the same.
with ulterior motives, you know, could walk past the border and nobody noticed, you know, which is very concerning. And that brings us, in the last year, we've seen terrible acts of terrorism in countries in Europe. Just around Christmas, there was a huge attack on Germany in a marketplace just around the Christmas period. These
Recently, Turkey as well.
Yeah.
So, well, if you look at it, it's a very sensitive subject. We have to understand the history, how these ferocious people, which I call them possessed, they're obviously not normal people. They've been established through the events that happen in that particular area. When we look at it, I could state that even Mr. General, ex-Marine soldier, General or Colonel O'Keefe, he was doing research about ISIS, and he found out that actual ISIS stands out for something different than what the actual media tells us. So he was saying that ISIS stands for Israeli Security Intelligence Service. Now, we have to dig in more into that. He was saying that the reason why these people attack only different countries and never attack Israel is because secretly these people, they're being funded and loads of armies and weapons they've been sending out to these people. So they're getting the support from somewhere. It's very odd when you look at it that we're living in such a great time of our world when we have this technology, and we can't just get a hold of these people. For me, it's very odd, I would say. And
well, we can't get control of these people, but we can double check on them. I mean, no one can walk through the immigration from the border without having it double security. Do you understand what I mean? I mean, if you let everyone walking in, then you expect terrorism.
yeah, absolutely,
If you
absolutely.
let everyone coming in, especially people from where exactly is going on, like Israel, Syria, Iraq, then you expect terrorism. If you let everyone walking in, then you can't be surprised when there is a bomb or there's anything going on, you know, in the UK or in France, in Germany. We need to have more security in this country. There's not any at all.
Yeah, I think I understand where you're, you know, both come from. Vlad, just like so, that's one perspective. That's one, you know, that's someone's opinion or
someone's opinion.
Yeah.
someone's opinion of what they believe may be happening, and there's no fact to say that that is the truth. You know, but it is obvious that there's an issue with security. You know, that we definitely do need more security. You know, somebody could say it's a bit far-fetched to say actually there is people that are involved that are helping, you know, aid these people, you know, to come over, or whatever ISIS really does stand for. So I think at this time there will be a lot of speculations of, okay, why is this able to happen at such a mass scale? But then at the same time, what are the security measures that we have in place in Europe?
You are talking Europe, you know, at large. I think for now, maybe we should even, you know, focus on the country where we live in. Last year, when 2 years ago, last year, when the immigration, you know, Europe had, there was the issue with immigration, when people were migrating from Syria and stuff like that. UK took a stand not to actually allow immigrants into the country. And, you know, a lot of people opposed the government at the time. But in the last couple of months, we've come to see that that choice was more or less a wise one.
Very wise,
you know, seeing the things that have happened, terrorist acts that have taken place in Europe in the last 1 year, you know, at the end of the day, it comes across like that was a really smart choice to make. Our next story is a story about a Syrian refugee who actually walked into the UK with a fake passport that he purchased for £300, and nobody did anything about it.
Security.
So they let him in, or they let him in the country when
Oh,
they
yes, they
noticed
did.
that?
They
Or?
let him in the country.
He is in the country, and he's even talking about bringing his wife and kids over. In his words, he says that he doesn't like to break the law or anything like that, but it was there was a dire need for him to leave his country and go somewhere where he can be safe. And someone offered him a passport for £300. He was very skeptical. He wasn't even sure, you know, if it was going to work. But he tried it, and he came into this country with a fake passport.
He said that the facial recognition scanner actually picked up a discrepancy, but the staff let him go through. So is it that there's more training that needs to be done for the staff that actually work in within immigration at the airports? You know, okay, a discrepancy.
I don't know. It could be border forces. You know, budget issues. There's been a lot of cuts. You know, in different departments.
I see.
So if maybe the immigration staffs if they're understaffed, that could be
a problem.
a problem as well.
Just like you said, you've travelled and you've been able to just walk through, but fine for you because you actually have a real passport. Talk less of the one that doesn't actually have one and actually, you know, makes it to the check-in system, and that fails. But then there's somebody there to just say, actually, no, it's fine. You can just go through. There's actually a video on this particular story, so we're just going to take a look at this video, and when we come back, we'll be rounding up this story. So just take a look at this.
I travelled to southern Turkey myself. I spoke with a number of contacts who told me that the trade was rife, both for Syrians who'd lost their documents, but also other people seeking a new identity or pretending to be Syrian. Members of ISIS are buying these passports. They're buying them to create new identities for themselves and their families so they can travel to Europe under cover of the millions of genuine refugees who are seeking sanctuary from the terrible war in Syria. I know for a fact that they're for sale in the border towns of Turkey. They may be for sale elsewhere, but certainly in the towns on the Turkish border in the south where a lot of Syrian people now live. I can't go into too many details because to do so would put in danger people who've given me their trust. But all I can say is the passport was created in Syria by a Syrian forger, and it was smuggled across the border to Turkey where I took hold of it. I've spoken to a passport and identity fraud expert, a former Scotland Yard detective, who has suggested that while there are a couple of flaws in the passport, it is good enough for somebody to be admitted into southern Europe, Italy or Greece.
Welcome back. So just as you've seen it there, it's that easy to get a passport and just travel around. So
this is a fear factor, isn't it? How easy immigrants can get into our country, and especially, you know, this type of people.
I certainly don't think that anybody should be fearful. I wouldn't say fear factor.
Yeah, well,
because it'd be extreme to say fear, but I think it highlights the fact that more needs to be done in the area of security.
You need to pay attention to security.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, quickly, before we go, let's look at this one that says the Queen was nearly shot by one of her guards while walking around Buckingham Palace. I thought that was really interesting. The story says that the Queen was working. It says she likes to take, you know, walks at, you know, wee hours of the morning. So this day, 3 a.m., she was walking all by herself, and the guards didn't know she was out there by herself, and they almost actually shot her. You know, I think what's interesting about the story is how she took it. You know, she was actually very nice about it. Yeah. She was like, next time I think I'll better let you know that I'm going to take a walk by myself so I don't get shot. You know, very remarkable.
Certainly.
Well, it's good that it happened like this.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it wasn't.
Security guard with that thing.
I think the Queen should have a button when she wakes up or she wants to go somewhere. So she presses the button and then everyone knows that she walks around.
The Queen is out on the premises
Sometimes
somewhere.
you just want that little, your me time.
Yes.
And I think she wants her me time.
But I think
Absolutely.
at the same time, where she's at and who she is
It's
not
not
always going to
allowed,
happen like that.
yeah.
You know, it's just like you're saying, if she had a button to say, okay, this is what I'm doing, even if she's saying, look, I'm fine, no, it's not going to happen. There will be somebody there to either follow her or to ensure that, okay, she's fine, or maybe there might be somebody following closely behind her just to ensure her safety.
I'm
But it's
wondering
good.
how the guy must have felt, you know, already pulling your trigger or whatever, and then you look, oh my God, it's the queen. He must have been terrified. You know?
I was just a little note. I was thinking maybe perhaps someone should stay next to her door all the time, isn't it? That's why I assume it should happen, no? Like
So the moment she's walking out,
At
you're
her bedroom
escorting
or
her out.
Somebody is aware. Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. Today's show has actually been filled with so much to discuss, and that's as far as we can take it. But thank you so much for tuning into today's review, and we'll certainly be back again next week. But we're going to be saying goodbye for now. Any final words before we say goodbye?
Maybe, you know, Esther got something, a final word.
Well, thank you for watching us, and have a good afternoon.
God bless.
We'll see you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yes.